Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back here. My name is Marcio Cots. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Get Global International. We are a digital governance consultancy company, and this is our podcast. And we have here the pleasure to host John Adams from Airbnb. So thank you so much for being with us here today, John.
Yeah, likewise, Marcio. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Okay, that's great. So let's start by knowing you a little bit better. So could you just tell us how you got here? How do you get involved with data privacy? I'm pretty much sure that you've been working with AI as well. So yeah, we would like to learn a little bit more about yourself.
Sure thing. Well, I've been doing product privacy for the last 4 years. I was with Meta for 3 years, and I just recently joined Airbnb. And so as part of that, we look at all of the products and features that are launching for, my given focus within the organization. And as you know, AI has become the thing that everyone is focused on, especially the larger technology platforms. And so a lot of what we're looking at now are AI products and features that are launching out into the world. And so my role is to work with these product teams that are building these experiences and introduce a privacy by design approach to the way that we build and make recommendations for how that we can enhance user privacy in those experiences. And so it's a lot of fun. I get the opportunity to see what these companies are building behind the scenes before that they are brought to life. It's a huge privilege. And, privacy is such feel-good work. You feel like you're doing the right thing and you're fighting the good fight, so to speak. And so I love the space. I got into this kind of like a lot of other people in privacy by accident. I was working in data governance. And when, I was working for a domestic company named CarMax, and CCPA came out. And the most natural team to work on that was data governance. And I got an opportunity to work on that. And I loved it. It was so much fun. All of the conversations we had with the internal business partners were so smooth. Everyone was just like, yes, we should do privacy. It sounds great. And so we weren't fighting an uphill battle. And I felt really good about the work. So I decided to focus on that. And I've done privacy and data governance for CarMax and Nike and HBO Max and Meta, and now Airbnb. So it's been a really great and fun journey.
Yeah, really nice. Yes, as you said, most of the guests that we host here, they are working for big corporations. So we had people from Marriott, the ex DPO, HP, and most of them, they pretty much have they have gone through the same story. Different backgrounds, but at certain point, someone got to do this job. Not everyone understood at the beginning what that was about.
Right.
That's why we have professionals from different fields, right? Data privacy governance, sometimes compliance, sometimes lawyers, information security. So that's really interesting. And what are the main challenges for a global company like Airbnb in complying with many different laws and regulations across the globe?
Yeah. First, like you said, I think the key word there is global. These companies, Meta was interesting because like every decision you make scales out to sometimes billions of users across the globe, depending on what area you're focused on. I worked on Facebook. And even though Facebook is, it's not as popular as it once was in the United States, globally, it's still very popular around the world. And so,
for sure.
So the complexity there was coming up with decisions that scale well and decisions that meet all of the kind of patchwork of laws and regulations and also just cultural, expectations across the world. Airbnb is unique because we actually offer real world in-person experiences. And so, yes, we make global decisions that impact all of our users, but we also make a lot of very focused decisions, like at the city level sometimes, for how these user experiences work. And so what's I think very interesting about Airbnb is that we have to be able to find a balance between making global decisions that scale across the world, but enable some flexibility for local modifications, local modularity. And so that's been really exciting to work on. And I think that, really what you have to think about is like at Meta, it was like, risk decisions scale to like billions overnight. And Airbnb, a single city regulation can change how the product works for that entire city. So that's the way I would kind of contrast the two.
Yeah, that's interesting because the other day, someone in one of the events that I was invited, they asked me, what kind of skills should a data privacy professional should have? And I said that he should be able to deal with data privacy, but mostly understand how data privacy is applicable to the business of the company he's working for, because there are differences. The other day, we were talking with a professional from HP, and it's all about the product.
Yeah.
Marriott, that's a little bit different because it's more about the service and
Yes.
the individual itself. So that changes from company to company, depending on how the company wants to approach and address data privacy, and also the kind of product and the service we are providing, right? So yeah, that's really interesting.
I 100% agree. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a skill. I think you're right that it's a skill to be able to, especially if say you're like a consultant in the privacy space and you're working with many different organizations.
Oh yeah.
to be able to drop into a new organization that you've never worked with before and spend some time really understanding, what is the core thing that this company does, and start from understanding the business before that you start to tailor what the privacy compliance approach is going to be. And I do think that is a skill, and it does take some business acumen, I think.
Of course, 100%, because that's pretty much what we need to deal every day in our daily routine. There are two main things that we focus at the beginning: understand the company, the business, the product, but also the kind of approach they want to have, because each company address data privacy and AI governance in a different way.
Yes.
I got to say that some companies, they are open to take more risks. Some
Yeah.
others may not. So, and that's something that, of course, we give our opinion on how we should address it. But at the end of the day, the company is the one who's going to decide, what kind of risk we're going to take here.
So that is another really important, I think it's a really important skill and just ethos to bring to your day to day, because these companies, you have to think about it, right? A business is a business. They're not always trying to make sure they're the best at compliance or the best at privacy or AI governance. What they are trying to be the best at is the best product or service for their customers.
Of course.
And so I do think risk acceptance, risk tolerance, it varies. So, if you look at financial services companies, right, they are under much more pressure to ensure that all of the information that they're processing about their customers is following laws and regulations and best practices. And why? Because they're getting audited, right? They have audits, sometimes multiple audits per year from different, if they're based in the United States, even from different states are auditing them. Different attorneys general are auditing them. And so the incentive structure is set up in a way where, because there's so much more enforcement on those types of organizations, the budgets are higher, the risk tolerance is lower, and those companies invest a lot more in privacy expertise, security expertise. Whereas if you go to, say, I don't know, like a global entertainment company that, maybe, like a streaming service or something like that. Yes, they have laws and regulations they need to follow, but the regulators are not knocking on their door every other week asking for proof they're following everything. And so
Exactly.
the decisions internally about how do we kind of balance the investment in compliance versus the ability to execute are difficult. And I would love to be able to talk about how that we as compliance professionals can lower that cost of compliance, if we have time to get to it, because I think it's something that we,
Yeah,
you know,
go ahead. I mean, I think that's a pretty good topic. I would like to hear your opinion, please.
okay. Well, so what I've experienced, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What I've experienced is that there's some tension sometimes between compliance organizations and business teams. And it's, I think, a natural tension, right? You have business teams that want to build, they want to grow, expand, move fast, right? They want to move quickly, especially now that AI is starting to change the pace of business. AI is increasing how fast companies are executing. And so these organizations are under so much pressure to meet the speed of the marketplace. And then you have compliance organizations that are kind of sometimes seen as like, let's slow down a little bit and let's understand some of the risks and try to rationalize some ways to minimize them. What I really wish that we could focus on as compliance professionals and risk professionals is how do we help the organization move as fast as they want while continuing to have really great quality decisions about how we manage the risks that they're encountering. And so I think when we as we think about how to do this, we need to embed ourselves with those teams, and we need to get as close as possible to the daily operating rhythm. And we also need to offer advice as a team member, not like outside counsel. We need to not pretend like we're outside counsel and that they're our client. We need to be pretending like we're part of the organization. And I think that always working backwards from a risk-based framework and likelihood, right? The likelihood of that risk taking place, we need to start there to have better, more informed conversations with the business about how to manage risk. So I'm happy to double click on any of that. I'm also happy to talk about AI, assessing AI in this kind of framework as well.
Yeah, that's how we address this specific matter. Just to give you some idea of the kind of work that we have done, we have helped more than 300 organizations all around the globe to develop and implement their data privacy governance program. And one of the main things that we focus right from the beginning is we do whatever we can to change the corporate culture. Because if we don't make everyone if we don't make them understand the reason why we are there and that we are part of the team and not something aside,
Yes.
it just doesn't work. It seems that we are two separate things that sometimes just don't talk, and that we are not aligned and not taking the same path. So right from the beginning, we usually do different things in order to change the mindset, to make them understand a little bit better our role and the importance of addressing data privacy from the beginning, from scratch. Of course, we work a lot with the privacy by design, all the principles, and even in some countries, we use privacy by design ISO. That's not as popular in the US as it is in other places, but there is also some niche frameworks for privacy by design. So we try to make them understand. Same thing with AI. As I told you before our podcast, we have a tool called AI Risk Inspector, and that tool we use for two different main reasons. One of them is throughout the life cycle development of AI models. So we make tests in order to identify throughout the life cycle if there is any kind of risk that we as a team could work together. It could be a ethical bias, things like that, or copyright infringement or data privacy infringement. So we try to make them be part of the solution, and usually it works because I got to tell you, in other countries, data privacy is something that's already part of the routine, especially in Europe
Yeah.
or other countries that deals with data privacy in a more restrict way. But here in the U.S., mostly professionals that work for international companies, they need to understand that faster, and because that's something that we definitely need to address. So once we make them part of the team and they make us part of the team, and that's just one thing, then we are able to put the main data privacy and AI governance topics to be part of the discussion.
I totally agree. Having tools that help along the journey of building a product are super valuable. And here's the thing, like the companies that win in AI are not just going to be the fastest to market, but they'll also be the ones that prove that they can be trusted as well. And so I think that the larger companies understand this. And I think most companies understand this actually, that brand value and brand equity and brand reputation are priceless, right? Like you can't, you can come up with fancy ways of putting a price on it, but everyone understands the importance. And so I think that our value proposition is help the organization through this transition into this next phase of how products and services are going to work by being powered by AI in a way that users trust it. And just like in privacy, there's certain headwinds. There's certain companies that take shortcuts and then they make the headlines, and then all of a sudden consumers are skeptical again. And so what we need to do is we need to minimize those types of situations. And so that's my call to action at work every day.
And I do agree with you. I believe that the consumer is becoming a little bit skeptical with AI.
Yes.
Much more than data privacy, then, because in some countries, I got to say that consumers are not so attached and worried about their personal information, but AI is a little bit different, because I see that AI, it's amazing what it can help, everyone. But at the same point, it's a little bit risky, because it's not just personal information. It could be much more than that. And people understand that. And we are already seeing things that are happening. There are not the things that we would like to see. And once the company understand that, we need to make sure that the consumers are protected and they trust us.
Yes.
I believe that that's something that will differentiate companies from other ones that are just using artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
that's
right.
How I see it.
Yeah, no, so it is a differentiator. And I think that another thing to consider is that, coming back to the topic of helping companies move quickly while keeping high standards, that's also, I think, a differentiator as well. Like if you can build an internal team, or if you hire a really great company like yours to, help execute on some of these things, it can actually make your organization much more resilient, much stronger. It's an investment, right?
Yeah, of course.
And
of course.
And to your point around, the difference between the way consumers are looking at privacy versus AI. I mean, look, privacy, it kind of was like, it means like deleting rows in a database, right? If you want to be forgotten, it's like a company can handle that, right? We can delete rows in a database. But what about if we've trained a model on a user? How can we make models unlearn what they've learned about users based on information that the models never should have had access to. And so,
Exactly.
like if an engineer comes to you one day and says, "Hey, do we need to retrain our models now that now that we removed a certain data set from our organization?" And these are the types of questions that you get in this line of work. And
Exactly.
what I'll say is that the law is getting more firm on this,
Mm-hmm.
and so we need to prepare ourselves to be able to do these types of things on a really rapid basis, not just make decisions, but the business needs to be able to be agile to meet some of these demands in the marketplace as well. So yeah, and then I think, AI is so much more flashy. I mean, privacy is so much fun. I love it. It's great work, but I think AI is so much more flashy and it catches so much more attention that
Mm-hmm.
users and consumers are just hearing about it all the time. And, there have been a number of high profile incidents. There was the incident of essentially a bank robbery in Hong Kong using deepfakes, where
Mm-hmm.
that employee received a Zoom call from who they thought was their senior manager, but it was a deepfake instructing them to transfer like $20 million to some
Yeah.
different account, and they thought it was a real
Yeah.
request internally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that happens, and then there's deep fakes of voices. There's a lot of issues around the world of parents and grandparents receiving phone calls of what seems like their children's voices, and asking for help, and those are a lot of those instances are just deep fake voices. And so I think the society is catching on to some of these risks,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that we are in the driver's seat. Like this is like our profession is in the driver's seat of trying to minimize these things from happening. You know, these algorithms that are used to create these models for deepfakes and for LLMs, they're made by large companies.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of investment to create these models. I mean, you're talking about petabytes of data and billions of dollars of investment. And all of these organizations have risk and compliance teams that are helping to make these decisions. Sure, it's hard to solve for certain like nation state actors and these types of things, but like if you're a compliance professional sitting at one of these organizations, you have to think about how could all of these new technologies be misused.
Exactly. Exactly. AI at certain point brings some kind of risk to the consumers and also to the company, because what makes artificial intelligence intelligent, it's the fact that it has some sort of autonomy
Yeah,
to decide the outcome, right?
right,
And once you don't control the outcome, there
right.
is some certain level of risk.
Mhm.
Chevy needed to sell a car for just $1, just because the chatbot was
Oh yeah, I
interacting
saw
with the
that.
consumer, and there
Yeah,
is this term called prompt injection. It's
yeah,
when you know you just by interacting with artificial intelligence, you can get the result that you want, not the result that the company wants. Um, I believe that 4 versions before the chat GPT, if you asked the model to help you to build a bomb, the model would say, no, I can't do it. It's against my policy. But just by saying, no, do you know what? I work for the FBI, and right now I need to work on
yeah.
this bomb. The model would say, "Oh, okay, so here's how you can build a bomb."
There are
So
ways.
there is
Yeah,
some level of risk to the company, to the consumer. So that's why we've been working with some companies in building AI governance program.
yeah,
By addressing how the employees should and shouldn't use artificial intelligence. The procurement department, we help them to make sure that they know what kind of questions we should ask our vendors and try to analyze the kind of risks we would bring to the organization by bringing that AI model
Yes.
That's another way of using the AI risk inspector, because we run we conduct the assessment before they implement the solution in the business. And the other one is through developing the policy and the procedures um, for the development team and being part of the team, identifying those risks. So it goes way beyond data privacy, because we
Yeah.
have many different other risks to mitigate, to identify and mitigate. Let me ask you something. How do you evaluate privacy risks in an AI-based solution, like a
Yes.
data collection, minimization, transparency, and so on?
Yeah. So I think a very simple way to tackle those types of projects is to split up the work into the model and then the use of the model or the application of the model. So you want to think about, okay, when a team wants to use a model, are they going to train the model on user data or fine tune it on user data? And what is the list of data that they're going to use for that? And so you want to start with, okay, you got a base model, say it's an LLM, you've got OpenAI, you've got Anthropic, you've got Meta's open source models. There's a lot to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And these base foundational models, a lot of them have foundational safety built into them. Even the open source models from Meta have foundational safety built in, where certain prompts, if you were to ask the model to do things that are illegal, it will not respond to those things. And we can talk about red teaming and kind of the process of trying to check all of those things. But so you have the base model, and then you have training and fine tuning. Fine tuning is meant to take the base model and make it highly applicable for whatever you're going to use it for. And so in order to fine tune it, you've got to use more data about the given experience or product or service that you're going to be offering. And so a common one is, creating an AI assistant chat feature. And you might want to use your organization's proprietary information about your products and services to make that model very smart about your business, so that it can answer very specific questions. Like Nike just launched their chat interface in their app where you can ask about Nike's products. And there's a lot of analysis you want to do and thinking you want to do about what data you feed in and the way that you red team the model. So a good example of this is if you go into the Nike app, and I was looking for a shirt that was out of stock. I've been wanting to get this shirt. It's been out of stock for a while. And I said, when are you going to get this shirt in stock? And it replies and says, sorry, I can't tell you when we're having our product launches, or our product drops is what they call them. And so it was a little confused and thought that I was asking about like new products being dropped into the marketplace. But there were some people inside of Nike that made sure that model would reply that way, to make sure that it doesn't give away secret sort of company information. So that's on the model side. And then on the use side, you want to think about all the ways that users can misuse. And so red teaming and evaluations are two kind of things that I look at before I make an approval to ship a model. And so red teaming is a process where that you have a group of humans that are testing whether or not the model is behaving the way that the organization wants it to be. When I was at Meta, I did a lot of volunteering to do red teaming, and our whole approach was to align models to human values, right? So this is the AI alignment topic. It's actually the topic of this book here, Stuart Russell's Human Compatible, if you want to read more about alignment to human values. And so as an organization, if you're bringing in AI and you want to use it, make sure that if you're bringing in a vendor, or if you're building your own model in-house, make sure that there's like a step in the process where that you're going to red team it and make sure that it doesn't respond in ways that you don't want it to. And then evaluations are sets of like standard it's almost like imagine it's like a standardized test for a
Mm-hmm.
model. You ask it a bunch of questions and you rate how it answers them. And there are a bunch of tools out there that you can use to do evaluations. And so those are that's the framework that we use. And one thing worth mentioning is in these large organizations, it's never just privacy that's involved. It's privacy, it's security, it's various legal teams, it's anti-discrimination and equity teams, it's responsible AI teams, and we all meet together and talk about these things. And so we get a lot of ideas from each other. And so another last aspect of this is you need to have the right people involved in that decision-making process to make sure that you're able to cover all the bases.
Yeah, great stuff. Let me make one last question here before we wrap up. What
Yep.
trends do you believe will shape the privacy field over the next 5 years, especially with the rise of AI?
Yeah, I think, well, there's global regulation. So regulation, I think, will catch up eventually. The EU is always leading the charge on that. And so the EU AI Act compliance, everyone should be getting smart on that, and myself included. I'm not an expert, on the EU AI Act yet, but that's a big one. And then, I would also think about getting smart on how models are trained and the data that's used to train models, because you want to make sure that you're following principles like de-identification of data before you train the model, and also enabling more user control as well is probably going to be a theme, where that users are given more options as to whether or not that their data is going to be used for AI, training AI. And a lot of that will probably be driven by regulation requiring the choice and consent. So you want to start thinking about ways to bring that to life without, causing a lot of disruption in your product or service. And then finally, I think moving quickly. I think just, companies, every CEO I've worked for in the last 4 years, which is two actually, it's just Mark Zuckerberg and Brian Chesky at Airbnb, are really focused on speed. And it's not for no reason. I mean, yes, they're ambitious people, right? But the marketplace is moving so fast, and AI is accelerating all of this across all teams in these large organizations. And so as risk and compliance people, we need to figure out how do we keep up with the pace of decision making, because otherwise we might lose some of our ability to influence if we can't make decisions fast. So I think that's another big theme that we need to think about as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Regarding the global regulation, I've helped some governments debating data privacy and AI regulation. At this point, I'm part of the Brazilian team that has been debating AI regulation in Brazil. I'm a European tech lawyer, so of course we are involved with the European AI Act and everything. And I do believe that international companies and companies that are doing business, across the globe will definitely need to understand how those regulations work. Those regulations, I don't think that's the way the government should approach and address the topic, because that's my own opinion. I think it's against innovation and so on. I do believe that there should be some sort of regulation, but not the kind of regulation that we are seeing. But it is what it is. That's pretty much the game we got to play. So we got to understand what the rules are. And next month we are launching in Europe and South America a book called AI Governance. So it's about the regulation, but how you should address different topics in order to get compliant with the regulation. So at the end of the day, it has a practical approach on how to deal with those regulations. And I've been working here in the United States for the past 3 years, and just as we've seen with data privacy, depending on the government that we have right now,
Yeah.
there will be different approaches, and depending on the state we are talking about,
Yep.
also different approach. So that's definitely a big challenge, especially for you guys that work with big tech companies. As I said the other day, I was interviewing ex DPO, and he's based in Ireland, but
Yeah.
he definitely needs to deal with data privacy in multiple countries, and definitely that's a big challenge. I do believe that internal teams are able to deal with this challenge, but sometimes you got to bring a different way of addressing, mostly because of the speed that you
Yes.
have mentioned. It's hard to just keep up with things happening everywhere in different ways.
Yes.
So I would like to hear, to what do you what are your opinions about these challenge, so we can definitely wrap up here and close our episode.
Sounds good. Yes. So, yeah, my closing thoughts around just all of these challenges are, um, the majority of people are good people, right? When it comes to the companies that are building these uh, large AI models, the companies that are collecting a lot of user data, and then the users that are using all of these products, the vast majority of people are good people, meaning that they're not trying to game the system, they're not trying to misuse data, they're not trying to misuse technology. And so that gives me a lot of just peace of mind. But in this line of work that we're in, unfortunately, we see all of the issues that come up from the vast minority of users. And so what is difficult is being able to protect all of the good people from the very, very few bad actors and bad situations. And so what I'll say is that as professionals in this industry, we carry that torch and we have the opportunity. To your point, regulation usually comes out of a need or out of a concern from constituents, and in democracies it comes from people wanting more regulation about something. And I think that if we can create a lot of trust in these organizations, then we can help innovation stay fast. I do think there's a trade-off between regulation and innovation, but it all depends on the decisions that are being made and the leadership that we have at these large companies. And so, to the extent that we rely on good values, I think that we have to always come back to that, and we can help in that in our day-to-day work. So that's kind of my ethos that I bring to the office every day. But I do think that in the US, we're probably not going to have a national regulation on this for some time, on either privacy or AI. I do think that a regulation on AI in the United States, it's a difficult conversation because, yes, we want safeguards, but we also want to have the most vibrant AI economy in the world. And we want to have the most talent. We want to attract the most talent to work on these technologies. And so I think it all comes down to, we have to make sure that we're minimizing the bad situations that take place. And that's what we can do on our micro level in our day jobs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John, for being with us. It was amazing, great stuff. I do appreciate your time and your kindness.
I
And
appreciate you. Thank you.
yeah, And we definitely will invite you for different other conversations about different topics, because I do believe that people like you that understand the importance of digital governance and also the importance of innovation
Yeah.
is the liaison between both things, and the reason why companies do good things in a good way.
Yeah.
So companies are made of people,
Yes.
and we need people that understand the importance of both things in those companies. So then we can, have a better products, better service, better society, and so on. So thank you so much.
You said it very well. Well, thank you. I appreciate the time and really enjoyed this. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you everyone for being with us. It has been a pleasure. So keep tuned. This episode will be uploaded on podcast, and of course, also check the other episodes with different other professionals talking about data privacy and AI governance. Thank you so much. See you soon. Take care.